We are going to have an unbelievable guest. This is a guest you're going to want to listen to. This guy is a hypnotist. If you need to change your attitude, he will help hypnotize you into a positive attitude. He is also an author. He is a podcaster, and his name is Mr. Tim Shurr. Tim, tell us what we are going to learn.
You are going to learn the coolest secrets out there for how to use the power of your mind to create your life by design. Tune in and we'll see you there.
What is the roadmap to defeat self-sabotage, negative thinking, and learned helplessness? In these unprecedented times, you must get connected, get growing, get certain, and get attitude. The Get Attitude Podcast. Welcome everybody to our show. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. Most of all, I want you to share this podcast. And trust me, you are going to want to share when I tell you the person who has come in to be on the Get Attitude podcast. We are today with Mr. Tim Shurr. Tim is the author of Get Out of Your Way, and he has an upcoming book called One Belief Away. But the most interesting thing about this guest, and he's the only one that's done this, Tim is a hypnotist. He owns the Indie Hypnosis Clinic. He is an awesome keynote speaker, and he is focusing and helping corporations all over America when we talk about innovation and influencer. This guy is it on unconscious beliefs, shifting behavior. Mr. Tim Shurr, welcome to the Get Attitude Podcast.
Hey, Glenn, it is an honor to be on your show today. Super good to see you.
It's great. We were talking off camera. Tim and I actually are in the same city. We didn't realize it because I know we're both busy, but it's good to have a fellow Hoosier here, and it's good to have a Hobart Bricky with us on the Gap. Tim, obviously this show is about attitude, and I know you have vast experience and a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas, but I'd love to hear your definition of attitude, and I'd love to know who your two attitude coaches were.
Ooh, great question to start off. So my definition of attitude is how you decide to show up every day.
Nice.
Right? It doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up. And so what I've learned is that it's not the experiences that we go through, it's the meaning that we give to those experiences. And that meaning over time becomes a set of beliefs. And those beliefs end up guiding you unconsciously. And they influence all the decisions that you make. So many people are on autopilot. And when you decide that you're going to have an intentional, purpose-driven life, that means that you have to focus on intentionally creating a new attitude. And that's why your show is so important. And I'm so happy to be here. As far as my attitude coaches, that's a great question. So I have two of them. And my earliest attitude coach was a guy named Scott McFall. And Scott helped me to really learn how to be others focused instead of so self-focused. You know, I was many entrepreneurs, many business leaders, many sales professionals vacillate between wanting to conquer the world and struggling with anxiety, you know, and that fear of not having enough, not being enough. And so he helped me to focus on adding value instead of always being worried about what's in it for me and am I going to be okay? Mm-hmm. So that was huge. The second coach was Les Brown, famous motivational speaker, Les Brown. He always, every time I talk with him, he's like, hello, great one. You know, and it just makes me feel good. And he reminds me that we all have greatness inside of us. Sure. And the goal is to show up every day looking to feel really good so that, you know, you lift yourself up so that you can lift others up. And so those are my two.
I did see that you have a podcast called How to Be Mesmerizing, and I looked at that, and I know Les Brown was one of your guests, and we were fortunate enough to have Les on our podcast. Talk to me about your relationship with Les. Are you close? Do you talk to him a lot? Did you go to a seminar? Talk to me about Les just real quick, because he's always worth a story, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. I just love calling his phone and listening to his voicemail because he's got that infectious laugh and
Oh
he's
my
so
God.
motivating. And I'm friends with his daughter. And so,
Which
yeah, I
daughter?
had him on my podcast and we started talking. And in the beginning, I was really excited. I was very intimidated to meet him. He's like the number one motivational speaker in the world. And I was very intimidated. And, but I built up the courage. And then I'm always looking for ways to add value. And my brain, the negative voice in my brain was saying, how am I going to add value to Les Brown?
Mm-hmm.
But I asked questions and I listened to what he was working on. And I was real curious about him. And then there was an opportunity to help him out. And then he gave me a challenge. He says, Tim, I have these 3 goals. I want this, this, and this. And I'm like, I'll have it for you, tomorrow.
Wow.
And then he's like, what's it going to cost me? And I'm like, nothing, and so I'm adding upfront value immediately.
Yes.
That formed the relationship. There's talkers and walkers, and I did the walk and we've been friends ever since.
Isn't that cool? How long ago was that? That's awesome.
It's been in the last year.
Wow.
Last year.
Do you know Serena or which daughter do you know?
Ona is his daughter.
Ona, sure. Yeah. We had Serena Brown on our podcast earlier. So, well, that is so cool. You've mentioned the word value, and I always love to ask our audiences, what is your definition of value?
Great question. So value is when you provide somebody an experience that they want to have that produces the emotions they want to experience most.
Love it. I love it. My definition is it's what you do for the customer on behalf of the customer before even asking to do business, right? So much the same thing. And it sounds like that's what you try to do is deliver value. And when we talk about this concept of unconscious beliefs, which is what you're known for, talk to us a little bit about, and I know you mentioned it already, but what are the biggest mistakes people make with their unconscious beliefs, and what's the best way to change your unconscious beliefs, right? So we have people on the Gap that are going through stuff. It's probably because their unconscious beliefs, well, it's great. We can identify your unconscious beliefs are screwed up, but then how do you fix them? So just two-part question there. What are they? What's the biggest problem? And then how do you fix them?
So I've been facilitating coaching sessions since 1995. I got my master's degree in psychology, but at the same time, I had been studying hypnosis because I felt like it got me, it helped me to produce faster, better results for my clients than traditional talk therapy. Since that time, I facilitated over 15,000 individual hypnosis sessions.
Wow.
So that is a lot of time walking around in people's unconscious minds.
Wow.
The biggest fear that we have is that I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not enough, I won't be loved,
Mm-hmm.
or I won't be accepted, or I won't be, happy or successful. And so not almost every single problem that we have, everything that we complain about can be traced back to a limiting belief. And so if you're struggling financially, 90% of my business was wiped out because of COVID. Right. So, but my belief said that I always land on my feet and something better is coming. Because I'm always looking for the rainbow, and I know that you don't get the rainbow without the rain sometimes.
Yes.
And so, I finished my next book and created a Legends Summit and ended up becoming friends with people like Brian Tracy and Bob Proctor and Dennis Waitley.
Yes.
Right? All because of this pandemic.
Right.
So it's not what shows up, it's how you show up. So whatever problems people are struggling with, the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the fear, it always comes back to some kind of unconscious belief that you formed when you were a kid. So how do you update it? Well, there's a simple process. And I put the process together in the One Belief Away book, but I'm going to take you through it right now.
Great.
So what you do is you start with a feeling. What is the feeling you're having? Anxiety, worry, stress, fear, imposter syndrome, feeling like you aren't going to be able to get what you want. And then you follow that feeling all the way back to the very first time you ever felt that feeling. And there's always a situation, and it's not the situation, it's the belief that formed about it. And then what you do is you go back and you empower yourself or reparent yourself. Usually when we think of our past, when we think of upsetting or traumatic experiences, Glenn, we think of it from the point of view as a child, because that's how we experienced it.
Yeah.
You want to take the wisdom that you've earned as an adult and take that perspective back to you, back into that situation. so that you're able to kind of look at that situation, not from a child's point of view, but from an adult's. And then you ask yourself, what do I need more of in that situation? More love, more acceptance, more support, more encouragement, right? More protection. And then you actually give that to yourself and you replay the movie with a better ending.
Cool.
An ending where you are empowered. And when you do that, it shifts. It like breaks the spell that you're under. And then you can ask the $1 million question. What's the new belief that I'd rather have moving forward? And when people do that, I have seen extraordinary breakthroughs from so many people from all over the world with every kind of problem there is. And when you take them through this and you upgrade their unconscious beliefs, it breaks the spell. People who could not get motivated or focused are now all of a sudden fired up and making it happen. People who could not ask for that raise or could not lean in and deliver and close more sales, those who were struggling with their marriage, that were heading to a divorce, those who are addicted to every kind of substance there is, I've watched them turn it around over and over again.
Making yourself the hero in your own story, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. I love that. You mentioned and touched on the Legends Summit. That is a creation of yours. Talk to me about what that is, how you became friends with those three amazing men during this pandemic. Give me that whole story and tell me what the Legend Summit's all about.
Yeah, thanks. So, in March, everybody kind of went, whoa, what's happening, right? We've been through, if you've been in business for a long time, we've gone through terrorist attacks. We've gone through financial markets, crashing. We've gone through now worldwide pandemics. I've gone through my accountant saying, hey, you got, a 5-figure tax bill you got to get paid. You go up and down in business through all these stressful things. And so as we go through this COVID-19 experience, it scared a lot of people. Anxiety was on the rise already. But then when you take unemployment and the social injustice that's coming to a head and all the other experiences at the same time, people are just freaking out, right? And we're not through that. We've got probably another year of it to go. And we're hoping for vaccines, but people are still really struggling. Yeah. So there's a lot of noise, as you know, on the internet, and suddenly everybody ran to Zoom, and now everybody is an expert. And so there's a lot of noise out there. People turn to the internet because that's what how to make more money, how to survive the pandemic. And I thought we need to take advice from the legends of the industry who have been guiding us, the mentors who've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, right? All the people that I grew up going to the library because I didn't have any money growing up. But I discovered the library and getting cassette tapes and putting them in my Walkmans and listened to the Brian Tracy's and Dennis Waitley's and Zig Ziglar's and all these amazing people. So I thought, I want to interview them. So I've always been adding value for so many people over the years that I finally started asking for favors. And I'm like, hey, who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? And so I started getting all these people on my podcast, and I had these amazing legends. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we brought them all together for a summit? Wouldn't it be cool if back in the day, now you'll know these names, Glenn. I don't know if all your listeners will, you got to be a certain age, but wouldn't it be cool if we could watch Dale Carnegie and Earl Nightingale have a conversation? Sure. And we could be a fly on the wall, right? Well, they're not with us anymore. And so I thought, but who are the living legends? And so I started thinking about, all right, what if I could get Brian Tracy and Les Brown to have a conversation and we could be a fly on the wall? And then what if I could get Bob Proctor and Dennis Waitley to have a conversation? And then I just kept doing that. I was going to have 6 people.
Cool. I need to watch this,
I ended up with 18 legends. And we had people from around the world that were glued to their seats for 2 full days. It was extraordinary. It was so good. This happened in October 2020 that people were like, when's the next one? I'm like, the next one? I just finished this one. Right. But the next one's January 23rd, 24th, 2021.
Great.
And I've got another extraordinary lineup.
So were all 18 of them on the same broadcast, or did you put 2 of them together and go every hour, or how'd that all work?
Great question. So I had everybody come in at once for the first 45 minutes. We called it the Legends Roundtable.
Wow.
And it was awesome seeing everybody popping in.
Tim,
because everyone was a headliner.
Yeah,
right?
That is so cool.
There were no opening acts. I mean, everyone was a headliner. And And then we group them up into conversations after that for 2 days.
And so is it legendsummit.com? How does my listeners, I'm going there, I'm going to hang up and I'm putting that sucker on my phone. Is it legendsummit.com? Is that how I get to it?
It is legendsummit.com. And then I don't even have it updated yet. So,
okay.
Because I have so much that's happening, but you can sign up to get on the newsletter so that I will let you know, when you can sign up. That'll probably happen in the next week or two. Cool. I've just been trying to get my roster finalized.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And so and then if you want to sign up for the January to be a part of that, just go to your website, timshurr.com, or go to the Legend Summit. There it is. All right.
If you want, for the Legend Summit, just go to legendsummit.com.
And
that was
sign up.
The old roster that you'll see that's up there.
Yeah.
I'll have the new one up pretty soon. But yeah, it was just an extraordinary event, and you'll learn from the masters, from the icons of the industry, how to improve, how to make more money now. That's, how to improve your sales now, how to grow your business now, how to strengthen your marriage now, because all of that is important. Most of the time we focus on money, but you got to make sure that you have balance in your life or it won't matter.
So with all those legends, what was your aha moment? What floored you? What, I know 2 days, I'm sure it happened a lot, but when you think about your best or your two best memories or your two best takeaways of that summit, what were they?
Well, the first one, Glenn, you'll appreciate. I would turn the camera off and I would literally take 2 steps over here and start dancing around the room because I couldn't believe that this kid from Hobart, Indiana, this little corn town, and put this together. Yeah. Right?
Unreal.
Like I didn't even know any of those people 6 months earlier, and I didn't, and who would have thought? And I called up Brian Tracy, which was blowing my mind.
So you just called him up
Brian on a Sunday afternoon. He's like, "Hello, Tim."
Cold called him?
No. I just from knowing each other, and when I first had the legend idea, I asked Les Brown first. I said, "Les, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And he's like, "Oh, that's powerful." And I'm like, "That's all I needed." I'm like, "All right, Les, so you in?" He's like, "I'm in."
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. So then I call Brian Tracy. I'm like, "Brian, I got this wonderful idea and Les is in. What do you think?" And he's like, "I love it." He says, "Tim, somebody had to do this. I guess it was you."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Right. So the first, amazing thing was that you truly are one belief away.
Amen.
From whatever you want.
Yeah.
I went from this is impossible and I can't do it to I could do this. I could pull this off. And now I pulled off the impossible. Right. And so the second breakthrough, that's a good question because there was so many of them.
Sure.
I mean, we were all just like in awe. So I think the second one that people keep coming back to is discipline. You got to be disciplined. No one's going to save you. No one's going to come rescue you. The money's not just going to fall in your lap. You have to do something. And that frankly scares people. When they hear the word responsibility, they're like, "Oh," but it really just means the ability to respond.
Right.
And when you listen to shows like yours and you have that attitude and you get the skills and you hang around other people who believe in you, all of a sudden you start believing in you and then the sky's the limit.
Tell me, when you, was there like a line? Was there a saying? Did somebody say something that stuck with you?
Well, let me think about that because there were so many. I will tell you one thing that stuck with me. Patricia Fripp.
Oh,
She's the queen of
speaking.
Sales, the queen of sales presentation skills, right?
Yes.
And she's wonderful. And we've spent a lot of time together because she, before the program and then afterwards trying to coach me and help me and understand. And one of the statements that she said that has really stayed with me is she says, never use words like things or bunches. In fact, every time I use the word things, I have to slap my hand.
Right.
You're not allowed to use things or bunches because unless you're buying bunches of apples, nobody knows what that is. So stop saying things. That really was impactful for me because I never noticed how many times I would say stuff or things.
Right.
You need it'll grow stuff in your business. It'll help you with, all the things that you have to do. That's very vague and people don't respond to it. You've got to be really, really specific when you're communicating with someone so that one, they really understand that you understand them. And two, when you're more specific, it creates clarity and you're able to push some emotional buttons.
I love it.
Yeah.
Tell me about
really stick with me.
Tell me about, let's talk about hypnosis. This is probably something, people act like they know it, but they don't know it. Tell us, and all of our listeners, all of our gappers is what we call them. Why is hypnosis a good therapy? How could hypnosis maybe help somebody who's listening? What are the reasons that people come to somebody to get hypnotized? Let's just delve into that a little bit. What's the whole hypnosis thing? Give us the presentation.
Yeah. So let's just say your brain's like a computer and your beliefs are the software. And if you want to update your software, then you got to get in there and update the beliefs. Most people update their cell phones, their laptops all the time, but they walk around with the same MS-DOS programming they were born with. And so I'm kind of like the geek squad for your brain. Hypnosis does two things. It helps you deeply relax, which most people just relaxing is incredible.
Cool.
Because we're so used to a high level of stress and angst and uncertainty that to really relax doesn't go very well. So we eat, we drink, we smoke, we try to watch TV, we shop, we try to do these things to distract ourselves, but it doesn't give us that feeling of peace. So hypnosis is like a massage for your mind.
Cool.
The second thing it does is it gives you direct access to your unconscious programming. If you understand the beliefs that are driving your behavior, you don't have to sit there and try to change your conscious thinking. Most people in therapy are trying to use, positive thinking in its simplest form.
Yes.
We're just trying to reframe and be more positive, right? But that's like cutting the top off of a weed. If you don't get to the root and pull it out there, it just keeps growing back. Which is why people are like, this isn't helping, or you don't understand, or it makes us feel like we're a real big failure now because we're doing this counseling and still not feeling, any better. God, what is wrong with me? I must be seriously messed up. And it's not that. It's that you didn't get the core belief that's driving all of that. So that's why hypnosis works so well. And of course, people have come to me for everything: smoking, drinking, weight loss, bad habits of every kind, fears and phobias, afraid of flying on airplanes, afraid of getting up in front of, I've had a lot of executives who could not get promoted because they were afraid to run meetings or run sales calls, or because they didn't want to speak. They had a fear of public speaking, right? So we got rid of that. I became someone that was the person you go to when nothing else worked.
Right.
So I've helped with people that just really nothing worked for them. They could not break free from the fears that they had, or the physical ailments that they were struggling from: chronic migraines, coughing attacks, stuttering, all kinds of stuff that people would come in. And then throughout the years, people would come in that were leaders of companies. And they would say, they would come in because they wanted to stop smoking, or maybe because they wanted to talk about their kids that were having trouble. And then they got such great results. They're like, wow, you think you could hypnotize my sales team?
Right.
You think I could get my managers to start communicating better instead of always fighting with each other? And, I'm like, sure.
Wow.
I don't know that much about corporate America, but I know a lot about human behavior.
Right.
And so I started going in and working with companies and getting rid of silos and improving communication. And it was the same stuff. It was, you have a blind spot you're not aware of. Yes. You keep saying these things. You keep, showing up in this way. Do you know what your face looks like while you're communicating to your team? And when we started shifting that, my best compliment ever came from Troy Hanna. He ran Central Restaurant Products. We grew the company $25 million in 5 years. Wow. And he said, you didn't just help our company, you made us better people.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That is so cool. We are in season 2 of the Get Attitude podcast, where we're talking to innovators and influencers, and certainly the Legend Summit, an innovative idea that came from the pandemic. This is an influencer in the public speaking and corporate development market, and we are lucky to have Mr. Tim Shurr that is doing this. What's your advice for people that are I hate to say suffering, but people that are letting the pandemic get to them? Like, there are people, right? I can't do it. I can't beat it. Limiting belief. They're blaming everything on the pandemic. What advice can you give them to get through this? Because like you said, it may be another year before you and I get on a stage, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. So what's your message of hope, or what's your, what can you tell our gappers that are sitting there right now and make it happen? Let me know.
Outstanding. So first of all, congratulations on a second season. That's huge.
Thank you.
If people don't run a podcast, they don't know how hard it is and how much work it is. So, so kudos to you, my brother.
Thank you, my man.
Second, you are exactly right with the word suffering. In fact, my mission statement is to end needless emotional suffering.
Awesome.
That is my mission statement, because people are scared, freaking out, not sure what's happening. Businesses are closing, having to go on, get it's not welfare, but what is
Food
it?
Stamps.
Unemployment. Yeah, go on unemployment. Yeah.
And there is no more unemployment, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, what do you do? I'm watching our restaurants close, our theaters close. My son's an actor, and watching, the like Beef and Boards, a theater in town here, closing for a whole year. I'm like, what are the actors doing? It was their full-time gig. And so, I already told you what happened to my business, all the keynotes and everything I worked so hard to get by just disappeared, and so I want to share with you a couple of tips, right? And one of them is called my 1 belief away power shift. It takes 3 seconds.
Love it.
3-second power shift. Okay. Here's what you do. Step 1, you breathe through your nose, because if you want to change how you're thinking, you have to first shift how you're feeling, because otherwise, if you're in a state of panic and stress, your brain is being squeezed and you won't be able to come up with any creative ideas. So we've got to get into a state of relaxation. Most people don't know how to do that. This is how you activate your built-in relaxation response.
I just did it. I feel awesome.
Yes. So you take your hand, put it over your belly button. Breathe in through your nose, down to your belly, slowly exhale. Do it 5 to 10 times in a row, okay? Yes. Because the first couple of breaths, if you're really anxious, won't even get down far because you're so tight, but you keep doing it. Another little trick with that is look up. When you look up, it quiets your mind.
Nice.
So look up, breathe through your nose, and then slowly exhale. You do that for 5 or 10 times in a row. It activates the relaxation response, and you will start to actually feel more comfortable. Then the second thing you do is you ask yourself a question. What is the outcome that I want? What is the outcome that I want? How do I want to feel? What do I want to have happen? What resources do I have? Who can I lean on for support? What I've observed is that about 75% of the population focuses on what they don't want, what they don't like, what they feel is missing. They focus on worst case scenarios. And if that's what you focus on, I don't want to go broke. I don't want to use up all my savings. I don't want to not be able to feed my kids. If you focus on that, that's what you're going to move towards. Imagine your brain works like a GPS, and you tell your brain, I don't want to go to the grocery store, and I don't want to go to the post office, and I don't want to go to the movies. Well, your brain's going to take you to the grocery store, post office, or movies because it doesn't know where else to take you. It just knows what you talked about.
Yes.
Okay. So you have to say, I want to go to Glenn's house, right? I want to go here, and tell it where you want. So first you take that power breath to get resourceful. Then you focus on what you want to have happen and say it so that your brain can hear it. I want to feel more safe inside. I want to feel more confident. I want to know that things are going to work out. I want to know that we're going to rally together, and one way or another, we're all going to land on our feet. I want to know that through this situation, it's going to cause me to make new decisions in my life that are going to actually, when I look back, say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I can't tell you how many times people have said, I really want to go out on my own, but I'm just afraid of losing that paycheck. And then like a week later, they get fired. They get downsized. They get furloughed.
Yeah.
Right. And they're all upset about it. I'm like, weren't you the one that said you wanted the opportunity to go out on your own? It's like God just gave you the boot.
Right.
Right.
No doubt.
Here's your chance.
Let me ask you about this. Is there something called self-hypnosis? And if there is, how do you do it?
Yes. So we use self-hypnosis all the time. We just don't recognize it. When we're sitting there talking to ourselves, saying the same things over and over, this is never going to work. This is never going to work. Those are hypnotic suggestions that are going right into your brain. And they're in your voice, which means your brain will believe them even more. Your television, Glenn, is the greatest hypnotist on the planet. And now our smartphones. Commercials and even taglines like breaking news, the world's going to end again.
Every day is breaking news. I've noticed
every 5 minutes is breaking news.
Yes.
And it's all about how the world is going to end. And so those are hypnotic suggestions. You can't help but be affected by that stuff, which is why decades ago, Zig Ziglar said, never fall asleep in front of the TV because you don't know what's going in and you don't want that garbage in your head. Be careful with what you listen to, which is why we're so lucky to have a program like yours.
Thank you.
Because people can tune into a positive source.
Yes, and we always call it going on a media diet. I'm like, if you want to improve your attitude, if you want to become a happier person, no media for 30 days, you will be amazed. Now, when you mentioned a commercial, it is time for us to take a little commercial break to make a little money. Tim, we are now in the closing moments of our podcast. We do this thing called Knowledge Through the Decades. This is meant to be fun. And what we do is we're going to ask you about the attitude lessons that you've learned along the way in your life. Now, the first one we always like to ask about is childbirth. What is, you may or may not remember childbirth, but what is the attitude lesson of a newborn baby?
Everybody starts off as a winner because you won your very first race.
Amen. Isn't that good? You got out and you made it happen, right? Everybody is born a winner. You were born to win, Bob Proctor, correct?
That's right.
And much of less. So I love that. If you guys are listening to this, we've never had that answer before, Jason, but if you're listening to this, you are a winner. If you're not listening to this, it doesn't matter. You're probably a loser. So I just want to congratulate all of my gappers out there who have stuck with Tim and I through this podcast. Remember that you were born to win, and you are a winner. And you need to say that to yourself. You need to hypnotize yourself with that. All right, Tim. So now you're up in northern Indiana, and you're 10 years old. You're probably in the 3rd or 4th grade. Do you remember being 10? What was the attitude lesson that you learned back then?
Oh man, I'll tell you, back then it was, for me, to be really honest, it was, my attitude was you can't really trust people.
There you go. Right.
Yeah,
so let's go ahead and talk about that one, because my guess is there's some gappers that are working with that. So you can't trust people. Tell us where that came from. Was it a teacher? Was it a parent? What was the circumstance? Because my guess is there are no unique circumstances. So let's just tell us the story.
So I grew up in the 70s and everybody was sarcastic, in the 70s and ripping on each other and everything. And so I had a couple of friends that your friends are the people that live closest to you on the block. And I had a couple of friends. And if it was just me and one of those guys, then it was like we were best friends. But if the other person came in, all of a sudden it was those two against me.
Oh, yeah.
And they would act like they were my worst enemy. And
Crazy.
So it was very confusing to my brain because, I just wanted to be happy and feel good and play. And instead I had all this drama. And so it just caused my brain. I mean, I didn't think about any of that at the time,
Sure.
But in my brain, it was really, you can't trust people.
Yeah. And that's a common problem, right? I mean, and I think I had the same experience. I think a lot of people had the same experience. What is your lesson for people that are in drama-filled lives? What's one or two quick thoughts that could maybe help them?
Yeah, when you're in a drama, and you have the best questions, when you are in a drama-filled life, which pretty much is most of us, right? There's if we don't experience drama, we tend to make it up. And so what you want to do is be a leveler. And a leveler, what that means is that there's different ways that we communicate. I'll keep this real short, but a lot of times we're either having a pity party for ourselves and feeling always like, no matter what I do, it's never good enough. Or we develop the communication where we're the blamer. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always your fault, the government's fault, the president's fault. It's always someone else, right? Or we're the distractor, where if we sweep it under the carpet, then it'll go away on its own, which never really happens. We want to be the leveler. The leveler is, let's deal with this. I need to be honest, direct, and kind all at the same time. Start with myself and then bring that to others. Because remember, I say it doesn't matter what shows up. What matters is how you show up. Well, it doesn't matter how others show up either. What matters is how you show up in their presence.
Amen. That's how I start my keynote. Attitude booster number 1, be nice. So you nailed that one. So you went to Hobart High School, you graduated, and I assume you went to college. You're a learned man. What is the attitude lesson at 20?
So 20 is...
where were you? Tell us where you were and all that good stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm 20 years old. And so I'm probably a sophomore in college. And
where?
Indiana University Northwest.
Okay, there you go. Big campus.
I didn't have enough money to go to Bloomington.
God love you. Okay.
So I went to school in Gary, Indiana.
Oh my gosh. Very good. All right. So what was your attitude lesson being in Gary, Indiana, going to Indiana Northwest? I didn't even know there was one. That's brilliant,
and
man.
So again, I'm just going to be as honest as possible.
Thank you.
My belief at the time was, how do I survive and get people to like me?
Awesome.
Right? How do I survive passing my grades? Because I didn't study much, because I didn't feel like I was very smart. How do I survive paying my rent? You know, I was in this old broken down apartment. I think the rent was $175 a month.
Unreal.
I was always freaking out about how I was going to pay it.
What was your job when you were 20?
I was selling vacuum cleaners door to door, although they were home cleaning systems.
Of course.
And then I moved into working at Radio Shack. So I sold the first handy computer. I didn't know what a computer was, but I sold them.
That's awesome. Yeah, we just had one of our, Glenn Sanford, the founder of eXp Realtor, sold vacuums door to door. So you're in good company. We just had him in the podcast not too long ago. What an amazing experience. You got a sales vacuum story? The worst day of selling a vacuum or the best day of selling a vacuum?
I'll tell you.
A customer that made a difference, something like that. Yeah.
Well, this is what I remember is that every time I was selling these $1,200 vacuum cleaners.
Oh, yeah.
Right, in the early 80s. I mean, early 90s. That's very expensive, right? $1,200 vacuum cleaner. And I would roll up in these neighborhoods that looked like they could not afford it. And I remembered that anytime someone would lean out the door and say, "You can show me, but I ain't buying," they always bought, and they always bought full price. And it got in my head that as soon as someone said, "I'm not buying," I was like, yes.
That goes back to what you tell yourself, and your mind doesn't hear no. Like, I'm a football coach, or I was for 20. And, you know, when we'd tell a kid, "Don't fumble," well, they would fumble. Yeah, "Don't miss tackles," then they'd miss tackles. And it's, "I'm not going to buy." Well, you know what? They're buying. Hypnosis.
They're buying.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so you got through, you made it, and now you're 30 years old. Do you remember your 30th birthday? Where were you living, and what was going on in your life, and what was the attitude lesson of 30?
So 30 years old, I'm living in Maryville, Indiana. And so the hub of Northwest Indiana. And so I'm in Maryville, and I'm running my hypnosis practice.
Wow.
And trying to get clients in. So I will have had that 30 years old. So I've been in business for 5 years.
Wow.
And still trying to work out how to get more clients coming in. So let's see.
The attitude lesson.
Yeah, the attitude lesson for that was seize opportunities.
Cool.
I got an opportunity to, a guy recruited me out of the blue to go to the Holiday Inns and be one of those guys that would go and do the stop smoking weight loss seminars.
No.
And he asked if I wanted to do it. And I'm like, yes. And I ended up traveling all through the Midwest and into the East Coast and Canada, and doing these big weight loss and stop smoking seminars. And it taught me how to work a room.
And a keynote speaker was born at 30.
Keynote speaker was born.
That is freaking awesome. I love it. All right. So now 10 years later, you're helping people quit the cigs and lose the weight. Where were you at 40? Where were you living? What was going on in your life? And what was your attitude lesson?
So 40, all of a sudden, I moved to Indianapolis.
Oh, wow.
And learned the real value of hiring coaches. I had coaches, but I realized that to get to the next level, you always got to have another coach in your life, whoever it is. Mentors are great because mentors are going to give you free advice, but coaches will really, if you find a good coach, they can change your life. And I had to learn how to be a business owner and not just a practitioner.
Right.
Because I'm very good at my craft, but I didn't know how to run a business. And I hired a coach that taught me, and that financially changed my life for the next 10 years. I was able to have a system in place and create a steady, predictable stream of income, which was life-changing.
Let's give that coach some credit. Who was it?
Yeah, his name was Scott McFall.
Scott McFall. Oh, he was the number one attitude guy.
Yeah,
he's
the one that helped me, because in business, we talked a lot about the importance of being others focused and adding tremendous value. And when you do that, my wife's peeking in.
Hey, what's going on? Tell her you're on the America's #1 attitude podcast show.
That's right. So when you do that, it makes a tremendous difference for you. So of course he got a little lost some of his own way towards the end of it, which is why we tended to separate. And that's good too. Know when it's run its course.
Yeah, there you go. Another great attitude lesson, right? And so now we're going to go to your last decade. I don't know, you're probably a little bit over 50, just like me. Would love to know, where were you on your 50th birthday? How did you celebrate? And what's the attitude lesson of today for you and for our gappers?
So for me personally, I turned 50 in April. And then, we've been spending a lot of time with my family, and because, we've been physically distancing. I don't like the word social distancing. We've been physically distancing and emotionally connecting more than ever.
Yeah.
And that has been wonderful. And it was through that time that I realized that I needed to make sure that I made my wife more important than my business.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I worked real hard on wanting to make her a priority instead of the never-ending to-do list.
Yeah. Well, I would say that that's probably, for every wife out there, very much appreciated as a sentiment and an attitude. And I'm sure there's a lot of husbands out there that may be going, I might need to change my attitude on that one. Mr. Tim Shurr, you were a phenomenal guest. You dropped bombs on our attitude gappers today. This was an amazing podcast. I learned a lot. I want to thank you for your knowledge and your compassion and your kindness. And I hope you and me, I'm sure we will, we're going to get together in person, I hope soon. And Mr. Tim Shurr, the podcast host of How to Be Mesmerizing, make sure you come out and check out his book, his new book in January, One Belief Away. And I'm just telling you right now, I'm signing up at legendsummit.com for his January summit with the Legends of Personal Development. Tim Shurr, that was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the Get Attitude podcast.
Glenn, this was one of my favorite interviews, and you are a delight. So thank you so much.
All right, you're the man. Thanks, Tim. We will see you, and Gappers, we will talk to you on the next Gap episode.